Chapter 3269. If the emperor was someone else and he was the one assisting the emperor, even old Madame would have no choice but to agree to it. After making this decision, Do Changye rested for 2 days before he began to plan this matter. It was not that he had never thought of rebelling and ascending to the throne, but the price he had to pay was huge and he might not succeed. Now that the young emperor was famous and had dealt with many corrupt officials, he was loved and respected by the people. If he were to have breakfast, not only would he not have the right to do so, he would also need a long time to prepare. Even if he could afford to wait, would Junhua be able to? Perhaps one day, the young emperor would bring Junhua to the palace. By then, it would be even more difficult to see her. In the end, Do Changye decided to choose someone with ambition and ideas among the princes. The young emperor was personally chosen by the late emperor. Perhaps the late emperor knew that he did not have a long lifespan. After all, he was not in good health and could not withstand all kinds of political battles. Hence, he decided on a candidate right from the start and chased the other princes who were of age out of the palace to build a mansion so that they would not have any ideas. With King Duan, the young emperor's ascension to the throne was very smooth. Especially in the past few years, he had also solved the problems of many small countries. Now that the external problems had been solved, he had begun to solve the internal problems. If the young emperor's brothers had any objections, they definitely did. However, the young emperor's position was too stable and they did not dare to touch him. He had to choose a prince who was still unwilling to give up and wanted to be the emperor. He believed that very few people could resist the temptation. Do Changye acted quickly and soon, he decided on his target, King Ping, and met him. After various probing, both parties reached an agreement. King Ping had always been unwilling to just be a prince. He was clearly older and smarter than the young emperor, but the late emperor still chased him out of the palace to build a mansion. Although he was crowned a prince earlier, he did not like such an honor at all. What he liked was the feeling of sitting on the throne and looking down on everyone. The two of them secretly plotted their rebellion, completely unaware that everything was already under the control of a few people. None of their actions could escape the eyes of those people. With the system's current ability, it could easily cover the location of the capital city and know clearly how many times Do Changye went to the toilet. Of course, Tang Guan knew what he was doing. Mei Shangji had always held a grudge against Do Changye for bullying his fairy. He had been keeping an eye on Do Changye every day. How could he not know what Do Changye was doing? Now that he had trained a group of people, they might not be good at killing and fighting, but it was still easy for them to follow people. Since Mei Shangji knew about it, he would definitely report this news to the little emperor. Therefore, the little emperor knew about it at the first moment. But he wasn't flustered or angry at all. Everything about these two people was exposed right under his nose. It was as if he was looking at clowns. What was he panicking about? He had planned to make the two of them submit before taking the opportunity to deal with King Ping. King Ping had always been restless and would often disagree with him on certain matters. In short, every word of his was particularly aggressive. Although the other party failed in the end, it still made him feel uncomfortable. Due to the previous emperor's decree, he had to treat these brothers who had been driven out of the palace early on to build a mansion. Vertex. Chapter 3270. Since the other party did not commit any major mistakes, he turned a blind eye to it. His other brothers were well behaved, he had given them all the honor they deserved and had never mistreated them. This King Ping's ambition could be sensed from every word he said. Even with that kind of attitude, he still wanted to rebel. He didn't even know how to restrain himself. Why didn't he just ascend to heaven? Shengguan Yungu naturally knew about it and had informed the little emperor about it. He already knew the plot. When he saw that King Ping and Do Changye were working together, he was exasperated. He recalled that in the plot, he was poisoned to death by Do Changye and King Ping. The little emperor eventually became a dethroned emperor and did not have a good ending. He did not plan to ask too much. The late emperor had asked Shengguan Qingchuan to treat his brothers well, but this rebellion was not included in it. However, when he saw the news about Do Changye and King Ping, he felt that Shengguan Qingchuan in the plot was not very smart. Recently, Shengguan Qingchuan could often see that Shengguan Yungu looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. It was a little strange. Breakfast had to be planned for a while. Even if there were people working together, it was not something that could be done in a short time. For example, Shengguan Qingchuan was loved by the people and they did not dare to do anything to him. They planned to take action after the limelight had died down. At this moment, Shengguan Qingchuan received a piece of good news. It turned out that some of the foppish men he sent out had found some food that could be used as staple food in the wild. They even dug some back and planned to try cultivating them. If the yield was good, they could plant them in large quantities. By then, it would solve the problem of food and clothing for the people in many places. Shengguan Qingchuan was overjoyed. He immediately gave a lot of preferential treatment and asked a certain foppish man to cultivate them seriously. Not long after, another foppish man said that he wanted to go overseas to take a look. It was because he had discovered many interesting things in this world. In particular, he found the things brought by the merchant ships from far away to be very interesting. Shengguan Qingchuan could not decide on this matter. It was a good thing to bring new items and bring them out, but there would be many disadvantages. He first asked Mei Shangji, who agreed with him. Then, he asked Shengguan Yungu for his opinion, who agreed with him. Shengguan Yungu had read many books about other worlds, so he definitely agreed. Since the two people closest to him agreed, Shengguan Qingchuan agreed. Within a few months, all the playboys in the capital had disappeared. When Mei Shangji went out every day, his surroundings were always cold and cheerless. He was still a little unaccustomed to it. After walking for a while, he returned to the mansion and lay down on the rattan chair beside the General King. "Father, I don't have a single underling anymore. Qingchuan is a bit too much. He sent all of my little brothers over to order them around. Now, I won't be able to drink with me for a while." "Silly boy, when your underlings are all successful, you, as the boss, will be even more impressive." The General King smiled as he said, "Besides, aren't you thinking of tricking your little fairy into entering the manor?" It had been so long, why hadn't he succeeded yet? Also, when a man is married, don't think about drinking all day. Otherwise, your little fairy will not want you and fly away. I'm trying to cheat her, but I haven't succeeded yet. You have to do things step by step. You can't be impatient. Mei Shangji was actually a little distressed. If Tang Guo wasn't willing, did he have to force her to agree? Vertex. Chapter 3271. In addition, with their identities, he couldn't openly provoke them. Qingguang Temple was a place of Buddhism, so it wasn't very good to do such things. Not only would it damage little fairy's reputation, but it would also damage her good fortune. It was fine if it affected himself, but what if it affected his father and little fairy, who he cared about? Mei Shangji felt that he couldn't wait any longer and had to take the initiative. So, what was he going to do next? Although he couldn't do it himself, he could publicize what Do Changye had been doing recently and let everyone in the capital city know that he had been chatting with Lu Junhua in the middle of the night. It wouldn't be good for his reputation if word got out. Mei Shangji didn't know that Tang Guo had also instructed her servants to spread the news about what Do Changye had been doing recently. She even spread the news that Do Changye had chased them to Qingguang Temple in order to make room for Lu Junhua. Just like that, the two of them cooperated without knowing. Within half a day, not only the capital city, but also the people around Qinguang Temple within a 5-kilometer radius of the capital city knew about it. Many people who went to Qinguang Temple to pray would look at Tang Guo pitifully when they bumped into her. The scholars in the capital city had already begun to write poems to criticize Dou Changye. Although Dou Changye didn't care about it, he was still infuriated to hear it. Lu Junhua rarely went out and her meals and accommodation were all arranged by the little emperor. Hence, she didn't have to worry about food or clothing. Dou Changye would chat with her every night and the two of them had a great time chatting. Occasionally, Dou Changye would bring Lu Junhua out at night to the places they used to go. However, if he did this kind of thing too many times, he would eventually be seen by others. Even Tang Guo, who was on her way back in the carriage, bumped into Dou Changye. In particular, the recent results made Lu Junhua remember many things and she felt that she and Dou Changye should be very loving. Hence, she was getting closer to Dou Changye. They sat by the river and held hands while chatting. Dou Changye even said to Lu Junhua, "When you remember, let's get married. The fact that I married your memorial tablet doesn't count. Let's start afresh this time. As for my stepwife, you don't have to care about it. I don't like her in the first place and there's nothing between us." It was old madam who brought them together. "If you mind, I'll divorce her directly. Let's talk about this later." Lu Junhua did not agree. "Is it okay for you to divorce her for no reason? She is a shrewish and rude person. Sending her to Qinguang Temple to cultivate her body and mind would probably be of no use. If you think it's cruel to divorce her, then let her stay in Qinguang Temple, eating and drinking, as long as she doesn't come back to disturb us." Of course, Lu Junhua minded the fact that Dou Changye had a stepwife. However, she could only remember some fragments of her memory because she had yet to recover fully. Therefore, she did not dare to give a definite answer. "Let's wait until I remember everything. It's too early to talk about this now." Tang Guo and the other concubines were standing behind the big rock. Qiu Yu and the others were furious. Apart from the few concubines who were casually arranged by old madam, Dou Changye asked himself, "Was I the one who agreed to marry old madam? They must have been blind to have admired this man before. He really didn't deserve such a good person like madam." Vertex. Chapter 3272. "Miss Yun, I think it's getting late. Since everyone is here, let's make things clear." Tang Guo walked out from behind the rock. It was not a coincidence that she was here. She had planned it all out. If she did not see the two of them being intimate and talking about things that she could not tolerate, how could she find an excuse to divorce him? Dou Changye and Lu Junhua were shocked. They did not expect that there would be someone behind the rock. Especially Dou Changye, who was a martial artist. How could he not sense the presence of a few ordinary people? He should have been able to sense them since they were so close to him. However, he did not think so much. He and Lu Junhua were indeed immersed in each other just now and might have neglected their surroundings. Now that this matter was seen by Tang Guo, he didn't panic at all. Instead, he looked at Tang Guo with an indifferent look, as if this was what she saw, but she couldn't do anything about it. If she was an ordinary woman, she would have been embarrassed. "Aren't you praying for blessings in Qinguang Temple? Why are you here in the middle of the night?" Dou Changye reproached. "Hurry up and go back. What about the crown prince? In the middle of the night, you're holding a girl's hand and saying that you're going to pretend that I don't exist. You're going to divorce me after marrying her and even let me stay in Qinguang Temple forever. Your Highness, aren't you looking down on others?" Dou Changye sneered. "Isn't it your choice to marry into the Duke's mansion? I told you on our wedding night that I can't possibly like you and I won't acknowledge you. I told you to stay in the Duke's mansion. If you're obedient, I'll let you live a carefree life. If you don't..." Crown Prince, you might have misunderstood. You've never raised me. I also forgot that I originally had a seamless shop in the main city of the capital. In the past few years, I've expanded it to more than 30. I used to have more than 60 mu of land, but now I have more than 400 mu of land. Tangguo leaned against the rock and said with a smile, "Who needs you to raise me? Who gave you the courage to think that I'll starve to death if you don't give me food?" Qiu Yu and the other concubines widened their eyes. Was their madam so rich? Dou Changye was also shocked. His stepwife was actually so rich. Since you want to marry someone else, it means that you don't put me, your legal wife, in your eyes. Let's settle this matter properly. Since you don't like me and I can't count on you, let's just break up. Dou Changye was taken aback again, for he did not expect Tangguo to take the initiative to break up with him. Suddenly, he felt that it was very reasonable. This girl was different from the rumors. Even if she left the Marquis' estate, she probably wouldn't mind what others said. Are you really willing to leave the mansion? Dou Changye asked. Tangguo nodded her head, of course. Shitzi hugged a woman in the middle of the night and confided in each other. This woman hasn't even married into the mansion yet, but she has already made arrangements for my funeral. I don't dare to stay in a place like the Marquis' estate, a tiger's den. If I stay any longer, perhaps the young master will poison me to death if he feels uncomfortable. Dou Changye humphed coldly, since you're self-aware, I'll write you a letter tomorrow. Leave the mansion immediately with the letter. Dou Changye was of course more than happy to get rid of Tangguo, who was an eyesore, without any effort. After all, he was now doing something big, and his stepwife was a small matter. Peak. Chapter 3273. While Dou Changye was daydreaming, Tangguo glanced at him coldly and did not respond to him. It was nighttime and it was not suitable for them to travel. Even if they traveled through the night, they would not be able to enter the city in a carriage. She was a lady from a wealthy family and she could not possibly be like Dou Changye, could she? System, check your conscience first. Your Highness, let's enter the city together tomorrow. Let's not delay any further and settle this matter as soon as possible. What do you think? Dou Changye naturally agreed to Tangguo's suggestion this time. It was rare for him to find her pleasing to the eye. I think these concubines of yours are good at serving people. Besides, I have the indenture agreement with me. I'll take them away too. Tangguo felt that Dou Changye was a fickle person. Hence, she took out a piece of paper and an ink pad. Your Highness, I don't want you to feel that these concubines are too beautiful to part with. Why don't you give them a thumbprint first? Qiu Yu and the other concubines looked at Tangguo eagerly while thinking to themselves, serving madam? If serving madam was considered serving her, they would be willing to serve her for the rest of their lives. They knew that Tangguo was just making up an excuse to take them away. Tangguo's original intention of keeping these concubines was not to do so. At that time, she had intended to take care of these concubines and treat them well so as to keep Dou Changye away. However, these concubines were all obedient, which was completely different from what she had imagined. Shouldn't the concubines look down on her, the unfavored wife of the heir, roll their eyes at her every day and show off in front of her? System, host, you're so charming that these concubines have all fallen for you. How could they possibly roll their eyes at you now that you have their heart set on you? Tangguo felt that if she were to leave now and leave these concubines behind, they would definitely come to a bad end. Given Dou Changye's character, he would either sell them off or send them to the nunnery to be alone for the rest of their lives. Hence, she had no choice but to take them away. As for the person who could keep Dou Changye away, Madame Dowager already had two people by her side. Tangguo's lips curled into a smile. She wondered when Madame Dowager would be able to use the cultivation dispersing pill she gave her. Do Changye was so angry that he laughed. Those concubines who had nothing to do with him had better get out of here. Hence, he didn't hesitate at all. With the help of the lantern and Lychee's hand, he glanced at the words on the paper and pressed his fingerprint on it. He even planned to sell these concubines after divorcing Tanghua. They were just concubines anyway, and they were all arrogant. In order not to alienate Junhua, they had to be dealt with. If they could be sold, they would sell them. If they couldn't, like Chen Xinyun, they would chase them back to their parents' home or send them to the nunnery. In short, she couldn't be an eyesore to Junhua. Now, not only had Tanghua left, but she had also taken all these troubles with her. Naturally, he was very happy. Your Highness, you're indeed a straightforward person. Since we're going to part ways, I won't disturb you. Tanghua took a deep look at Lu Junhua and said, Miss Yun, you don't have to mind my gaze now. Regardless of whether you're holding hands with your Highness, hugging him, or doing anything else, it has nothing to do with me. Tanghua's words made Lu Junhua's face turn red. However, at night, even the moonlight couldn't be seen clearly. Peak. Chapter 3274. Do Changye's gaze changed slightly. Before he could say anything, Tanghua turned around and entered the luxurious carriage. The carriage was custom-made by her. It was spacious and could accommodate a few people. Anyway, the concubines and maids could all fit in. It was warm and cozy inside the carriage. It was unlike outside where it was chilly and the wind would make one shiver. Madam, do you plan to leave the mansion? Chen Xinyun asked softly. Madam, are you taking me away too? Tanghua looked up and asked, don't you want to leave? No, I'm just glad that you're willing to take me away. Otherwise, I'd either be chased back to my parents' home or sent to the nunnery. I wouldn't have a good life there. The heir finds me an eyesore and the family despises me for being a disgrace. They won't accept me anymore. Tanghua nodded and said, I'll take all of you with me since you've been so obedient. However, you'll have to work to support yourselves in the future. I have many shops under my name. Once I've settled the matter with Do Changye tomorrow, I'll send someone to bring all of you there. She had never thought of taking care of these concubines. Once she divorced her husband, she would be getting remarried. She didn't want these concubines to hang around her every day and disturb her honeymoon. Chen Xinyun and the rest felt that it was only right. Most of them were not born in a noble family and some of them even grew up doing manual labor. Chen Xinyun was slightly better, but she also felt that she shouldn't trouble Tanghua all the time. Hence, she gladly accepted the arrangement. System, host, don't you think you're a scumbag? I'm letting them earn their own living. If they don't do anything, they'll become useless sooner or later and only know how to rely on others. No matter where or what era it was, no matter if it was a man or a woman, a capable person would not have a bad life. If they don't know how to do anything, they can only get married and serve their husband's family. Now that the opportunity has been given to them, it's up to them whether they can seize it or not. System, that makes sense. If they don't work hard, they'll be married off. Once I get remarried, I won't be playing tricks anymore. I'll just do it to pass the time when I'm bored. System, that's right. Now that you're married to Big Cutie, you definitely won't be bored. If you bring a few concubines with you, Big Cutie will probably get angry. In the second half of the night, Tanghua and several concubines gradually fell asleep. On the other hand, Do Changye and Gu Changge, who were chatting happily at first, were no longer as comfortable. Is it a little cold? Do Changye noticed that Lu Junhua was trembling when she spoke. Unlike him, she did not have any internal energy to protect her body. Even if he had internal energy to protect his body, it was still very cold in the second half of the night. It was fine if the wind didn't blow, but once it did, it would be even more uncomfortable. As soon as Lu Junhua finished speaking, she was hugged by Do Changye. His warmth made her feel at ease. At that time, she thought that perhaps there was only love between her and Do Changye, and there was no other feud between them. Still cold. I'm not cold anymore. Actually, it was still a little cold. In this cold weather, it wasn't as if she wouldn't feel cold just because she was being hugged. She hugged the top, but the bottom was still cold. The feeling was indescribable, especially when the wind blew. What made the two of them even more frustrated was the fact that it started drizzling. Do Changye brought Lu Junhua to hide under a tree and saw that there were umbrellas on Tangua's carriage. Peak. Chapter 3275. There were actually two carriages. One was a luxurious one for Tangua. The other one was for the servants. There were umbrellas above the two carriages so that they wouldn't get wet. Do Changye walked towards the carriage and was immediately stopped by two guards who were wearing bamboo hats. What are you doing? I'd like to borrow an umbrella. No, even if you do, you'll have to wait until Master wakes up. Hurry back and speak softly. Don't disturb Master's rest. The servants didn't give them any face at all. They didn't know who Do Changye was, but they knew that he was the person in the carriage who brought them back when they were almost starving to death. He was their benefactor. They didn't have a good impression of Do Changye at all. They would do anything to kill Do Changye if their master ordered them to do so. It was the middle of the night. Even if they killed him, they could find a place to bury him and no one would find out. Displeased with their tone, Do Changye retorted, "Doesn't the Tang Corporation discipline the two of you properly? Heir of the Duke's mansion, let me give you a piece of advice. Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, I won't go easy on you." Seeing that the two of them were about to draw their swords, Do Changye felt a murderous aura. He humphed coldly and left. The Tang family was really despicable. Although it was drizzling, Do Changye and Lu Junhua were already soaked by the time the sun rose. There weren't many trees around. No matter how hard they tried to avoid the rain, it would still drift in. It was late at night and they didn't dare to walk too far, for fear that there would be ferocious beasts. It's my fault that Miss Tang is so angry. Lu Junhua didn't stop Tangguo from breaking up with Do Changye because she could feel that Do Changye was suffering because he was forced to marry someone he didn't like. Now that Tangguo was willing to break up with Do Changye, she felt happy for him regardless of whether she would end up with him in the future. After entering the city, Do Changye said, "I'll send Junhua back to the mansion first. You can wait outside the mansion. I'll write a letter for you later." Tangguo didn't answer and left in the carriage. She was chatting with Shangguan Yungu in the group. Besides, she instructed her servants to send Do Changye and Lu Junhua all the way back to the residence. She also instructed them to take note of the people who saw them because she wanted them to be witnesses later. Shangguan Yungu, "Martial uncle, I will immediately enter the palace and ask Qingchuan to help me write the imperial edict to divorce my husband." School bell, "Sorry to trouble you." Shangguan Yungu, "No trouble, no trouble." Mei Shengji soon heard that Do Changye had brought Lu Junhua and Tangguo to the capital city. "You said that Holy King Duan rushed into the palace." Mei Shengji asked softly. "Do you know what happened?" "How would I know?" "It's probably something urgent." "Oh, I see. Send someone to keep an eye on the people who witnessed Do Changye's appearance and wait for my orders." "Yes, young master." Mei Shengji also hurried into the palace. When he saw Shangguan Qingchuan, she was writing an imperial edict to divorce her husband with a frown. When he saw Mei Shengji, he immediately laughed, Shangji, come and help me think about how to write the imperial edict of divorce so that the other party deserves to be divorced. Divorce? Mei Shangji's eyes lit up and he said, do you want me to write it for you? Sure, write it at the side and I'll take a look. Shangguan Yungu wasn't surprised at all. He thought that Mei Shangji knew about it too. The Peak. Chapter 3276. Regarding the matter of Tang Guo divorcing her husband, after all, she was his future master. Mei Shangji had to help his master vent her anger. In the afternoon, Dou Changye hurried back to the duke's mansion and wrote a letter of divorce. He did not see Tang Guo at the entrance and thought that she had entered the mansion. However, he could not find her anywhere in the mansion. Seeing that he was in a hurry, old madam stopped him and asked, Changye, what are you doing? I heard from the servants that you're looking for something in the mansion. I'm looking for Miss Tang. Old madam, have you seen her before? Isn't Miss Tang cultivating in Qingguang? Old madam asked in confusion. She did feel much more peaceful after Miss Tang left. Apart from Miss Tang and Dou Changye, no one in the mansion dared to talk back to her. However, she felt that something was missing in the mansion without Miss Tang. Apart from instructing the servants to take care of the two pregnant concubines, she did not seem to have anything to do at all. She felt much more sluggish and listless. Old madam snapped out of her daze and thought to herself, is there something wrong with Miss Tang? Seriously, I've gotten used to being bullied by her and I'm actually missing her. Miss Tang has returned to the capital today. Returned to the capital? Old madam did not realize that she could not control her joy. Where is she? Why didn't I receive any news? Maybe she hasn't returned to the mansion. She won't return to this place in the future. She took the initiative to break up with me and she'll no longer be Miss Tang of the mansion. Dou Changye waved the letter of divorce in his hand and continued, I'm looking for her because I want to give her the letter of divorce. Old madam was dumbfounded and she yelled, I forbid it. Old madam, Miss Tang took the initiative to break up with me. In this case, I should fulfill her request. I forbid it because I said so. Although Tang Guo wasn't a good company, the woman who looked like Lu Junhua, or even possibly Lu Junhua, was even worse. In comparison, she felt that Miss Tang was better. At least, she was capable and dared to knock Dou Changye unconscious and bring him back. Dou Changye ignored old madam and turned to leave. Old madam, you can't stop this. I'll find Miss Tang immediately and give her the letter of divorce. Madam Dowager chased after them. When she reached the main entrance, she saw Tang Guo waiting outside. Other than Tang Guo, there were many other people around, and a few of them looked familiar. Shangguan Yungu, Mei Shangji, and the little emperor Shangguan Qingchuan, who was dressed in casual clothes. Among the people who came out, there were some whom he didn't recognize. They should be the citizens of the capital. Tang Guo, I thought you regretted it. Dou Changye heaved a sigh of relief and handed the divorce letter to Tang Guo. However, Tang Guo did not take it. Tang Guo, this is a divorce letter for you. You were the one that requested to separate from me. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Go to your place, this marquis's estate has nothing to do with you. Tang Guo slapped the divorce letter away. Dou Changye asked coldly, what do you mean? Tang Guo took another divorce letter from Li Qi and handed it to Dou Changye. I was the one who requested to separate from you. After all, no one could interfere. My husband always went to look for other women in the middle of the night. I even bumped into him hugging other women. He even promised that if the other party was willing to marry him, he would divorce me and even send her to the nunnery to cultivate. What do you want? Tang Guo handed the divorce letter to Dou Changye. Nothing much. I just think that you're not qualified as a husband. Since you're not qualified, I'll divorce you. Peak. Chapter 3277. Do you think that Do Changye is qualified to be your husband? You're an irresponsible man who abandoned your wife on the night of your wedding. You even did what I said just now. He's not qualified. Definitely not. Some time ago, I saw with my own eyes that the heir of the Marquis family fell from a tree outside a house. I remember that there was an orphan and a widow living in the house. I didn't expect it to be the heir of the Marquis family. This morning, I also saw the heir of the Marquis family entering the city hugging the woman with the surname Yun. I saw it too. He did send her to the house and only came out in the afternoon. Who knows what strange things they did inside. Also, I remember that they were traveling in the same direction as the Tang family's carriage, right? Look, is this something that a human would do? Do Changye pinched the divorce letter and listened to the words of the people around him. He suddenly felt embarrassed. Tang family, you're rebelling. Tang Guo glanced at him calmly and said with a smile, you've already been divorced by me. You're already an abandoned husband. Tang family, what's the matter? Can't we talk about it properly behind closed doors? Old Madame Dowager couldn't stand it any longer. How can a woman divorce her husband? Isn't there one now? Tang Guo shook her head at old Madame Dowager. Why? Only men are allowed to divorce their wives, but not women. What kind of logic is this? Anyway, I won't allow it no matter what, old Madame Dowager said stubbornly. She didn't have time to be angry with Tang Guo. Moreover, she snatched the divorce letter and tore it into pieces. Do Changye didn't stop her because he couldn't accept the outcome either. However, Tang Guo took out the imperial edict from her sleeve and said, Marquis family, receive the imperial edict. Old Madame Dowager was stunned for a moment and didn't kneel down immediately. She didn't quite believe it, and so did Do Changye. Everyone, hurry and receive the imperial edict. It's a real imperial edict. I saw it with my own eyes. Qing, the emperor wrote it. Mei Shangji revealed his white teeth and continued, don't be in a daze. Miss Tang is here today to divorce her husband. Why aren't all of you kneeling? Are you trying to rebel? The General King, who was hiding in the crowd and watching all of this, couldn't help but cough. This brat really knew how to take advantage of the situation. The little emperor was too gullible. He was actually fooled by this brat. Seeing that Shangwan Yungu did not object, old madam hurriedly knelt down. Do Changye also knelt down unwillingly. Then, Tang Guo read out the imperial edict, which stated that Do Changye was not a qualified husband. There were a few harsh words, but in the end, Tang Guo was allowed to divorce Do Changye. Tang Guo handed the imperial edict to old madam. Old madam, I'll leave the imperial edict in your care. Tang Corporation, this, Tang Guo patted the back of Madame Dowager's hand. Speaking of which, I have nothing to do with the heir. We're innocent. Don't call me Mrs. Tang. Just call me Miss Tang. It sounds nice. Then. Miss Tang, have you really made up your mind? Old Madame Dowager was a little hopeless. What was this Mrs. Tang capable of? She actually followed the imperial edict to divorce Do Changye. The family members who heard about the commotion initially wanted to intervene. However, after hearing the contents of the imperial edict, they left dejectedly. Old madam, do you think that your grandson is a good person? Do you really not think that he's a scum? Am I a fool to spend the rest of my life with such a person? Peak. Chapter 3278. Changye just hasn't figured it out yet, then find someone who's willing to wait for him to figure it out. I won't keep you company. My prime years are going to be wasted by your son. It's such a waste. Tang Gua took 2 steps back and said, from today onwards, I'm a free woman. I can find a husband or get married, but it has nothing to do with you. Tang Gua turned around and left while Madame Dowager was still in a daze. The news of Tang Gua divorcing her husband spread throughout the capital city within a day and became a strange topic. Some people criticized her while others admired her. Do Changye felt that many people were pointing at him and he was in a bad mood as soon as he went out. Lu Junhua knew about it too and she comforted Do Changye. No matter what, you have nothing to do with her now. In fact, she feels that divorcing a husband isn't that hard to accept. Tang Gua said that a man can divorce his wife, and a woman can divorce her husband. She quite agrees. However, she did not say much in front of Do Changye. It was not strange that Tang Guo would do such a thing since she was so fierce. Since you can't get along with her, it's a good thing that you're separated now. Those people talking about you will be fine after a while. Lu Junhua indeed thought so. She had also heard others talking about her and Do Changye. She was not upset because those people did not know the inside story at all. Shangguan Yungu, Uncle Master, I've found a few houses for you. When are you free? I'll take you there. Campus Bell, I've found a house and it's in a good location. I like it. Shangguan Yungu, oh, that's good. Where is it? After Tang Gua told him the location, Shangguan Yungu was surprised. Wasn't this the house that Mei Shangji bought with great fanfare? Shangguan Yungu, so Shangji prepared it for you. He's so considerate. He knows how to show filial piety to you. The onlookers in the group chat thought, this silly boy still doesn't know the truth. Mei Shangji had been visiting Tang Gua's house every day and he would send all kinds of fun and delicious food to her. Seeing that Tang Gua did not reject him, he understood that she did not dislike him. According to this momentum, he would soon be able to coax her home. Young Master Mei, the fruits you brought are all very fragrant, sweet, and crisp. As long as you like it. Tang Guo raised her head slightly. One who is unaccountably solicitous is hiding evil intentions. Do you have any ulterior motives? Mei Shangji was a bit nervous, but in the end, he decided to throw caution to the wind and said honestly, I'm not going to let you say this, but I've admired you for a long time. He had never dared to make a move. Now, he finally had the chance. You're so good. I'm afraid that if I don't come over, someone else will kidnap you. Did you really just make a move now? You didn't do anything before. Mei Shangji looked into Tang Gua's eyes and confessed, I did a little. It was all insignificant things. Young Master Mei, tell me about it. Mei Shangji explained everything that he had done in detail. Then, he looked at Tang Gua nervously. Actually, don't think that I'm the #1 playboy in the capital. Actually, I'm not worse than others in many things. Mei Shangji was afraid that Tang Guo would not be satisfied with his state. I'm good at both civil and martial arts. It's just that I don't like to show off. I can become whatever you like until you're satisfied. To coax his little fairy home, he could become anything. Actually, I think this is pretty good. Tang Guo raised her eyes and smiled. Your most comfortable appearance is the best appearance. The peak. Chapter 3279. Are you satisfied with me? Mei Shangji asked anxiously. Tang Gua nodded lightly. Quite satisfied. You stand out in the crowd and are very sincere in your actions. Of course I'm satisfied. Then when are we getting married? I've already prepared a lot of betrothal gifts. Actually, my things are all yours. However, the betrothal gifts cannot be small and the extravagance cannot be small. Marrying a little fairy must definitely be a grand affair. Tang Gua hesitated for a moment. She wanted Mei Shangji to say something. In the end, she said, although I'm very moved, it hasn't even been 10 days. Isn't it a bit bad to get married again? Do you care about your reputation? I don't. If you do, I can wait for a while. Mei Shangji said impatiently. He had already waited for a few years. What was a little more time? Now that he was here every day, he wasn't afraid that someone would kidnap her. Tang Gua nodded. How about next month? There's still time to prepare everything. What? Mei Shangji couldn't believe it. In the end, he left hand and foot at the same time. He even almost tripped over the door sill. That day, news spread from the King of General's residence. That devil's incarnate, the #1 silk pants in the capital, was getting married. As for which girl was so unlucky, everyone in the capital was talking about it. Shangguan Yungu also couldn't believe it. Why were they in such a hurry? Could it be that martial uncle agreed to take Mei Shangji as his disciple and the other party was planning to leave a descendant for the King of General? According to his master, the higher one's cultivation, the harder it was to have a descendant. Shangguan Yungu, who thought he had guessed the truth, didn't ask in the group. When he saw Tang Gua announce in the group that she had found the next person to get married and was preparing to get married next month, he felt that something was wrong. However, he didn't connect the two together. Until the day of the two's wedding, when Mei Shangji rode a horse to pick up Tang Gua and appeared at Tang Gua's current residence, Shangguan Yungu was a bit stunned. Look! His original plan was to attend Tang Gua's wedding first, then go to Mei Shangji's place for a drink at night. Afterwards, he watched numbly as Mei Shangji led Tang Gua onto the bridal sedan chair. He didn't even get on his horse. Instead, he walked beside the sedan chair. His attentiveness made the surrounding commoners doubt their lives. One was a dandy from the capital, a devil incarnate. One of them was a famous shrew. She had just divorced her husband last month. It had only been a month and she was already married. Such a grand display of extravagance, it was simply enviable. The people in Beijing suddenly felt that they were very uncultured and could only curse in their hearts. It was only after Tang Gua and Mei Shangji had bowed to heaven and earth that the Marquis's estate received the news and found out about this matter. Old Madame Gu was dumbfounded while Do Changye did not feel anything. However, he still felt uncomfortable deep down. Yun Gu were even closer now. Tang Gua was all smiles as she looked at Shangguan Yungu. This is my husband, Mei Shangji. You can call him Grand Uncle from now on. Shangguan Yungu's head was still dizzy. He felt that he had lived in vain. Shangguan Qingchuan also came secretly. Knowing the truth, he did not care. However, he counted with his fingers. Originally, Mei Shangji was 1 generation older than him. Now, he was 2 generations older. Uncle Master, Grand Uncle, I wish you both a long life together. I'll take my leave first. Shangguan Yungu wanted to calm down. He actually had a grand uncle, and it was Mei Shangji. Damn. Wife, don't mind him. Yungu is just feeling uncomfortable. He'll be fine in 2 days. Mei Shangji said, revealing his white teeth. Obviously, he was in a good mood. Peak. Chapter 3280. Shangguan Yungu, Master, did you know from the start that Mei Shangji might become my granduncle? Mo Yuntian, yes, but you misunderstood. We didn't know how to explain it to you. Shangguan Yungu, are you sure you weren't waiting to see him make a fool of himself? Now that Mei Shangji was so proud of himself. He kept saying that Yungu was asking for a beating. What the fuck is this? Now he didn't want to look at Mei Shangji at all. He didn't want to see him at all. He called him granduncle in front of everyone because of his martial uncle's face. Otherwise, he wouldn't have called him that. But no matter what he said, it was useless. Most likely, the entire capital already knew about the marriage between Mei Shangji and Tang Gua. Everyone lived in the capital. It would be common for them to meet in the future. Especially for some formal occasions, he had to call Mei Shangji granduncle. Just thinking about it made him want to vomit blood. In his life, he had never been so aggrieved and unable to seek redress for injustice. Shangguan Yungu was still a little unreconciled. How could his martial uncle Mei Shangji got married? Shangguan Yungu, master, why would the school belle martial uncle take a fancy to that Mei Shangji? Shangguan Yungu, I'm not saying that he's not good. Martial uncle is an expert. Why would she take a fancy to such a silly commoner? Isn't he silly? Today, when he revealed his white teeth, it was really too silly. Piao Miao, I know. Full text Shangguan Yungu, Senior Piao Miao, what's going on? Piao Miao, actually, people who have been in this group for a long time will know what's going on. That Mei Shangji isn't a silly boy. He's a very treacherous boy. I'll tell you the details slowly. Once you've finished reading, you'll know what's going on. After understanding the cause and effect of the matter, Shangguan Yungu wasn't so angry anymore. So that silly boy is also an expert like his martial uncle. It's just that he's chasing after his martial uncle. Wherever his martial uncle goes, he follows. He's like a piece of sesame candy that can't be removed. If you're not careful, you'll pull your teeth out. Shangguan Yungu let out a long breath. He could accept it a little. Since he was an expert, there was nothing strange about martial uncle liking him. However, he still couldn't bear to look directly at Mei Shangji. Mo Yuntian, silly boy, you should be more careful in the future. When your uncle master goes to another world in the future, if you hear her mention that she met a very interesting person, you should know that this person is that thick-skinned person who chased after your uncle master, the extremely shameless kind. Shangguan Yungu, got it. However, when he thought about how he would often have to call Mei Shangji granduncle in the future, he felt his stomach ache a little. Fortunately, he and Mei Shangji didn't have much of a relationship, so they probably didn't have to see each other often. Otherwise, he would be helpless. The next morning, when Shangguan Yungu went out for a stroll, he happened to see Tang Gua and Mei Shangji walking hand in hand. Mei Shangji was also leading a dog with beautiful fur. In the past, he used to walk the dog alone. Now that he had a wife to walk the dog with, he was very happy. Most importantly, he knew that Shangguan Yungu would also come out for a stroll. When he saw that it was Shangguan Yungu, Mei Shangji held Tang Gua's hand and walked over with a smile. Yungu, why are you so early today? Chapter 3281. Shangguan Yungu, what if I want to hit someone? Look at this kid's complacent expression, there's no way to cover his teeth. He's been wanting to take advantage of his seniority for a long time now. Martial uncle, good morning. Shangguan Yungu respectfully greeted Tang Gua, especially not wanting to call Mei Shangji. This kid was clearly a petty person intoxicated with success, a fox borrowing the tiger's might to bully others. Yungu, what about me? Kid, do you not know how to address me? Mei Shangji almost went up to slap Shangguan Yungu's head, but he was holding the dog in one hand and his wife in the other, unable to let go. He could only smile, revealing a row of neat teeth. You child, I just told you how to address me yesterday. You're so young, how can your memory be so bad? Granduncle. Shangguan Yungu's face was wooden as he unwillingly called out. Ai, good boy. Martial uncle, granduncle, I still have things to do, so I won't chat with you. Although he especially wanted to chat with his martial uncle about cultivation, that kid Mei Shangji kept trying to take advantage of his seniority, so he could only withdraw first. Go busy yourself. Mei Shangji waved his hand, with an expression of, I understand, almost making Shangguan Yungu constipated. He decided that from today onwards, he would first live in the palace for 2 days in peace and quiet. Yungu, this kid, seems to be throwing a tantrum again. Mei Shangji's face was full of worry, as if he was really worried that something would happen to the younger generation. But don't worry, my wife. After a while, he'll understand and accept our current identities. You see, even if he's feeling uncomfortable, he'll still give me face and call me granduncle. After saying that, he couldn't help but reveal a row of white teeth, which were especially dazzling. Ran Wentangua held back her laughter and said, no matter what, you're still his granduncle, so you should call him that. My wife is still the best. System, damn, these two really don't have any integrity. Shangguan Yungu is really too pitiful, the most pitiful group member of the year. Sympathize with him for a second before laughing. Imperial uncle, I couldn't get you to stay no matter how hard I tried. Now you're actually going to live in the palace for a while, it's really strange. Shangguan Qingchuan had a puzzled face. Imperial uncle, did something happen to you? I heard that some people only miss their old homes because they have encountered some difficulties. It's nothing serious. I just suddenly recalled the things that happened a long time ago, the things with your imperial father and my imperial father. Now that I think about it, those days were especially good. Then where does imperial uncle want to stay? Shangguan Qingchuan thought for a while. There is no prince in the prince's residence. If royal uncle wants to recall the past, you can stay in any of the rooms. Why was there still no sign of any of his concubines' stomachs? He was already working very hard, especially diligent. He would pamper each of his concubines one by one, not leaving any behind. He did not have many concubines, less than 10. He could do it several times a month, but he only rested for 3 days a month. Yet, there was still no movement. Shangguan Qingchuan's expression changed. Was there something wrong with his body? He did not suspect that there was a problem with the concubines at all. It was impossible for a group of people to have a problem. The problem must be with him. Shangguan Yungu saw that Shangguan Qingchuan's expression was becoming more and more unsightly, and asked, what's wrong? You can't even bear to live in a prince's residence? Originally, he had come in to avoid Mei Shangji, but now he really wanted to go to the place where he used to live. There were many days in the past that were worth remembering. Chapter 3282. No, Imperial Uncle, I suspect that there's something wrong with my body, Shangguan Qingchuan said. Imperial Uncle, do as you please. I'll summon all the imperial physicians from the imperial hospital and let them examine me to see if there's something wrong with my body. After saying that, he looked at Shangguan Yungu with a serious face and said very seriously, Imperial Uncle, fortunately, there is still you. If there is really a problem with my body, the future of our Shangguan family and our eastern Shang country will depend on your efforts. Imperial Uncle still didn't have a princess, it's time to remind him. Don't wait until he's old to marry a princess, the child born then won't be healthy. This was what Imperial Uncle said, but he didn't have a princess himself. Obviously, he also knew that giving birth to a child was a very difficult thing. Shangguan Yungu was very confused. Until the imperial physicians came, Shangguan Qingchuan raised his doubts, saying that he had favored the concubines for so long, why was there still no movement in the harem? The imperial physicians became anxious and checked his pulse one after another. Shangguan Yungu. He seemed to understand why he was asked to work hard. Shangguan Yungu looked at the busy imperial physicians, looked at the palace, and almost rushed out of the door. He suspected that it was a very wrong decision to live in the palace. Fortunately, the final examination result was very good. There was nothing wrong with Shangguan Qingchuan's body. As for what was going on, they suggested to check the concubines in the harem. Shangguan Qingchuan agreed, just in time to check the bodies of the concubines. The result was still very good. Every concubine's body was very good, completely suitable for pregnancy. The imperial physicians were surprised to find that there was no strange poison in the bodies of these concubines. They couldn't help but admire Shangguan Qingchuan's eyes. Rumor had it that their emperor had truly spread the rain and dew equally. Not a single person was left out. Everyone was taken care of. Looking at these concubines, they all looked at Shangguan Qingchuan with crimson faces. They knew how hard he was trying to balance the harem. Baiyue, since there's nothing wrong, why don't I have a child? After that, he found that the concubines were very nervous, their faces were pale with fright. He waved his hand. I'm not blaming you, your bodies are very good, the imperial physician said, don't worry. I'm just curious, I want to understand. Even if he didn't have a child, he could still choose an outstanding heir. The imperial physician pondered for a long time, but there was no reason. Shangguan Qingchuan asked them to go back and think about it slowly. Meanwhile, Shangguan Yungu was already sitting on the side in a daze. In fact, he was asking Tanguo in the group what was going on. He had a feeling that his uncle master should know something. Shangguan Yungu, Shishu, do you know what happened? Campus Bell, in the original plot, none of Qingchuan's concubines were pregnant. It should be a requirement of the plot. The main character's aura hadn't disappeared yet. It was the effect of the aura. Once the halo completely lost its effect, it would no longer be able to affect him. After getting the answer, Shangguan Yungu understood and was no longer worried. Uncle Master said that it might be the effect of the halo. Shangguan Yungu explained, don't worry. When that halo disappears, you should work harder. Your concubines will be able to have children. Shangguan Qingchuan believed that. He then thought of something and asked anxiously, when is Do Changye going to rebel? He already knew a lot of things. It was said that Do Changye had a halo too. Calm down please bookmark, wear fast, female supporting character, calm down. Peak. Chapter 3283. Both of them had halos. He had already realized that if he was really affected by the mysterious force, he would not end up well. According to the current situation, I'm afraid he won't dare to rebel. You're famous and I'm healthy. He won't dare to touch you. Then think of a way to make him move. Shangguan Qingchuan held his chin and soon thought of a brilliant idea. He whispered it to Shangguan Yungu. Shangguan Yungu was speechless. This guy is too mean. Indeed, this guy only knows how to be stupid in front of Mei Shangji. Now that he's plotting against someone else, he seems to be very smart. From tomorrow onwards, no, from today onwards, I'll go out of the palace every day and bring Lu Junhua out for sightseeing, lake sightseeing, horseback riding, and play all kinds of fun. Let's see if Do Changye will be anxious. Shangguan Yungu thought of a phrase he learned in the group, fishing to enforce the law. Shangguan Qingchuan went to look for Lu Junhua that day and explained apologetically, I've been dealing with a lot of things recently and neglected you. Now that I'm almost done, I'll bring you out for a walk. You must be bored out of your mind staying in the house. Actually it's fine. Lu Junhua nodded and smiled. Shangguan Qingchuan thought, she's a liar. Every night, someone would chat with her and take her out for a walk. She even said, my foot. That mysterious force really has no taste. How dare it make me like this woman? Aren't the few concubines in my harem beautiful? gentle, and talented. Shangguan Qingchuan brought Lu Junhua out to have fun every day for a month. In fact, he kept a certain distance from her. However, in Dou Changye's eyes, it was an eyesore. 88 Therefore, after some discussion, he and King Ping had come up with a countermeasure. As Shangguan Yungu was healthy, it was basically impossible to poison him. In the end, they came up with a plan to frame Shangguan Yungu. They would secretly hide the dragon robe in Shangguan Yungu's house and coincidentally announce Shangguan Yungu's ambition to sow discord between the two of them. After Shangguan Qingchuan killed Shangguan Yungu, they would find a way to accuse Shangguan Yungu of being a fatuous ruler. It would be much easier to remove him from the throne. Regardless of whether the minister believed it or not, this move was going to succeed. It was indeed useful. When the various parties heard this news, they all smiled tacitly. Mei Shengji scolded in front of Tanggua, "These two are idiots." What did young Master Mei say? It's like this. If Yungu wants to be the emperor, Qingchuan will not hesitate to abdicate. This kid was just forced to do something beyond his ability. Do you know why he ran out to play when he was young? He just doesn't want to be the emperor, and even wants to acknowledge me as his big brother, and wants to be a silk pants. In the end, he was caught by Yungu, spanked in public and sent back crying. Tanggua burst out laughing. So there was such a thing. No wonder she felt that Shangguan Qingchuan's temperament was not like that of an emperor. He was intelligent, but his eyes were clear. Although his temperament was noble, in front of these familiar faces, he never addressed himself as Zhen, and even acknowledged Mei Shangji as his big brother. Qingchuan's idea is not bad. Dou Changye can't take it anymore. Next, we can punish him properly. Tanggua actually didn't want Dou Changye to die so easily. It was too easy. She didn't know when she could use the thing she buried in old Madam's house. Junhua, I've already decided on one thing. Like to wear it quickly, female supporting role, calm down. Wear it quickly, female supporting role, calm down. Peak. Chapter 3284. What's the matter? Why are you so serious today? Junhua, that person has been stopping us. He's the biggest obstacle between us. So, I plan to join forces with someone to force him to step down. Lu Junhua was shocked. Crown Prince, you're rebelling. How can you do such a thing casually? You'll implicate the Duke's residence. By then, everyone in the Duke's residence will die. Yes, Lu Junhua didn't think that rebelling was a disgraceful thing to do. However, she felt that it was too risky and they might lose their lives. Hence, she was worried about Dou Changye. Junhua, I actually know that you're afraid of old Madam of the Duke's residence. You've heard a lot of news, haven't you? Once I help the new emperor ascend the throne, he'll be on our side. No one can stop me from being with you. Lu Junhua's heart raced when she heard that he was doing all this for her sake. However, what if this fails? Junhua, don't worry. It'll definitely succeed. Trust me. Lu Junhua was touched by Dou Changye's words. She said softly, okay, I believe you. However, that person saved me once and even helped me find a place to stay. So, when you succeed in the future, spare his life and treat him well. Junhua, don't worry. He's a member of the royal family. He'll definitely be able to stay alive. The two of them continued to talk about other things and didn't realize that a bird had flown away from the tree to the palace. In the palace, Shangguan Qingchuan's face grew sullen after hearing their conversation from the bird's beak. Although he didn't like Lu Junhua, he did save her out of goodwill. He loved e-books. Not only did Dou Changye rebel, Lu Junhua didn't stop him at all. She even supported him and said that she would spare his life on the account that he had saved her. He was infuriated. Shengguan Yonggu had brought the bird back from a foreign country. After training, it could eavesdrop on people's conversations and repeat it to its owner. Within a few days, King Ping entered the palace and reported to Shengguan Qingchuan about Shengguan Yonggu's rebellion and the fact that he had secretly sewn a dragon robe. Is there such a thing? King Ping, who did you hear this from? King Ping looked around and said softly, it was the crown prince of the house of Marquis who accidentally discovered it. He had a servant by his side. Not long ago, that servant's wife died an unnatural death. In the end, he found a clue left behind in the room and asked the Marquis's heir to help redress this injustice. The crown prince is an acquaintance, so he asked me to investigate this matter. In the end, the investigation led to Saint King Duan. Your Majesty, you have to be careful. Even if Saint King Duan is our royal uncle, he may look like he is standing aloof from worldly affairs, but he is actually plotting something. He is ambitious. Since you've come to me to talk about this matter, you must have evidence. I don't believe that Imperial Uncle secretly sewed the dragon robe. Take out the evidence, or I'll punish you. If your Majesty doesn't mind, please come with me. This subject will personally bring your Majesty to our good Imperial Uncle's residence to search for that dragon robe. Soon, they arrived at Saint King Duan's residence. King Ping made a ruckus about his purpose for coming. Shengguan Yonggu looked at him as if he was an idiot and gestured for him to enter. Then you can go in and search. King Ping found it strange, but he still led his men in to search. This was because Do Changye was there too, which gave him a hint to not worry. He was the one who had placed the item in the robe. How could there be a mistake? After all, it wasn't good to leave such a thing to others. Found it. Your Majesty, King Ping, I found it. There really is a dragon robe. Peek. Chapter 3285. King Ping was overjoyed. After exchanging glances with Do Changye, he hurriedly looked away. Uncle, what's this? King Ping pointed at the dragon robe and said, this is the evidence of your rebellion. Uncle, I really didn't expect you to be such an ambitious person. Shengguan Yonggu looked at it seriously and said, this is the dragon robe. Uncle, since you've already admitted it, please let the emperor make a decision. Although the Shengguan family doesn't touch the royal family, we definitely won't tolerate the rebels. Shengguan Qingchuan touched his chin and walked over to take a look at the dragon robe. He muttered, Uncle, isn't this my dragon robe? Why is it with you? I picked it up outside. Maybe it was a stray cat that liked this style of dragon robe so it stole it. It's not good for it to fall into anyone's hands, so I brought it back and planned to bring it to you when we enter the palace. I see. Shengguan Yonggu shook his head and continued, since it's been eaten by a stray cat, I'll burn it here. Your Majesty, you. King Ping was extremely nervous. Shengguan Qingchuan lifted Elder Long up and said, look, did I wear this before? The size is just right. I'm tall and burly, it doesn't fit at all. The top is also torn and dirty, how could it be newly sewn? King Ping, you've misunderstood. King Ping opened his mouth and said in a flustered manner, it seems that I've misunderstood. How could you be such a person? By the way, you said that the heir of the Marquis residence told you about this. Shengguan Qingchuan looked at Do Changye and asked, heir, can you give me an explanation? Do Changye knew that the plan had failed and that the other party might have realized it long ago. However, he was the one who put it there. The so-called servant did not exist at all. Maybe the servant lied to me. Where's the servant? He committed suicide for his wife, Do Changye said indifferently without any signs of nervousness. Shangguan Qingchuan said regretfully, "That's really a pity. It seems that the truth can't be found out. Uncle, I'll return to the palace first." "King Ping, follow me to the palace, I have something to discuss with you." King Ping's legs turned to jelly. The emperor must have found out. He must know everything. Dou Changyi was drenched in cold sweat when he walked out of the palace. He walked to the marquis's manor and saw Chen Xinyun coming out from inside. He did not pay attention to her. This matter had to be considered at length. "Changye, where did you go? You're sweating all over." Dou Changye, who was deep in thought, did not realize that there was something wrong with old Madame Gu. "I just went out for a walk. Nothing much. Just in time. It's almost time for dinner. It'll be ready in a moment." The old madam stood up. "I'm old and useless. Go in and lie down first. Call me when it's time to eat." When it was time, Dou Changye finished the soup in his bowl and suddenly felt that old Madame Lin was staring at him, which made him feel a little strange. "Changye, it's not easy for the Marquis's mansion to be where it is today. Your grandfather and father used their lives to exchange for it. Don't lose these easy things. Got it? I won't do anything rash." Dou Changye, who had just finished speaking, felt his body go weak as he blacked out and fell onto the ground. "Someone, throw the crown prince into cold water and make sure that he's infected with typhoid fever and has to stay in bed for half a month." Old Madame Gu took a deep breath and continued, "After bringing him out, lock his limbs with metal chains. No one is allowed to let him out. Peek." Chapter 3286. Old Madame's quick reaction was out of the little emperor's expectation. In this case, he did not pursue the matter further. It was mainly because Uncle Huang had informed him that it was Uncle Huang's intention not to let Dou Changye die so easily. Now that Dou Changye had been dealt with, there was only Lu Junhua left. The little emperor soon thought of a good idea, which was to let Lu Junhua's family prove that she was Lu Junhua. "So you're Lu Junhua. This child turns out to be Dou Changye's." Lu Junhua had disappeared and almost died because of this child. She had threatened the Lu family to forbid them from marrying her off while she was pregnant. The Lu family could not afford to lose face and hence, could not do anything to her. In the end, they could only arrange for someone to send her away. However, there was an accident on the way that made them think that Lu Junhua was dead. The little emperor found out the truth clearly and handed it to Lu Junhua. "Since you're the daughter of the Marquis, I won't keep you any longer. I've already arranged for someone to send you back to the Marquis's mansion." He had finally taken back the mansion. He would renovate it another day and change everything. He would bring his concubines out occasionally. Lu Junhua was someone else's woman. What was she to him? Lu Junhua was still dumbfounded when she was sent into the sedan with her child and carried out of the Marquis's mansion. The person carrying the sedan yelled, "People of the Marquis's mansion, hurry up and come out. We've found the wife of the Marquis. She's not dead. This child is also the son of the Marquis. Hurry up and bring your wife in." Lu Junhua was indeed concerned about how others looked at her, but she also felt a little embarrassed now. However, old Madame walked in calmly and glanced at Lu Junhua coldly. "Since Lu Junhua is not dead, it's a good thing. Of course we have to invite her in." She had already received Shangguan Qingchuan's secret order to manage the Marquis's mansion well and not make any mistakes. If Dou Changye and Lu Junhua were to get into trouble again, as the emperor, he had to give them some face. He had to give them some face on account of the old duke and the Marquis. Besides, he also said that after the Marquis passed away, Dou Changye and Lu Junhua's children could not inherit the title. She could only raise the children of the two concubines. However, old Madame was very satisfied with the imperial edict. She also felt that Do Changye was not worthy of inheriting the title of duke. That bastard who almost caused the death of the entire marquis residence was not worthy. As for Lu Junhua, if she could do something as shameful as having an affair before marriage, she was even more unworthy. When Do Changye woke up, he realized that he had lost all of his internal energy. His body was weak and his voice was hoarse. Trembling, he crawled up, only to find that he was locked up again. His eyes burned with anger. Suddenly, the door was opened. Old Madame pushed Lu Junhua in. Changye, I have brought Lu Madame back for you. From now on, don't do those things that harm the Hofu. As long as you don't leave the Marquis's mansion, don't rebel, and don't harm the Marquis's mansion. If you want to be together with Madame Lu, then be together. I will let you be together every day. As for Madame Lu's child, the old Madame did not do anything. She let Madame Lu take care of the child and only cared about eating and drinking. She did not care about anything else. She was wholeheartedly educating the children of the two concubines. At that time, she felt that she had taken the right step. A few years later, old Madame attended the general's 70th birthday celebration with the two beautiful children. Peak. Chapter 3287. These two children were very intelligent and had been brought up very well. She had been looking for Tanggua in the manor and finally found Mei Shangji and Tanggua sitting on a rattan chair. He was feeding Tanggua grapes. Tang! The old Madame suddenly remembered that Tanggua could no longer be called Madame Tang. Madame Mei, how have you been? So it's the old Madame of the Marquis's household. How about you? I heard that the Marquis's household is very lively. Did they disturb you? Tanggua asked with a smile, afraid that she wouldn't be able to anger the old Madame to death. The old Madame took a deep breath. Very well. This old woman's body is very strong. It won't be a problem for me to live another 20 years. The two troublemakers in the manor weren't as troublesome as Madame Tang. Even Madame Tang didn't anger her to death. Those two were nothing. Greetings, Madame. At this time, Chiu Yu and the other concubines found Tanggua's position and quickly greeted her happily. Dong greets Madame. Yuan Xiang greets Madame. Xinyun greets Madame. Mei Shangji was extremely unhappy. Every time there was a festival or a birthday, these eyesores would appear and drag his little fairy to play with leaves. Once they played, it would be for an entire night, causing him to sleep alone for the entire night. It was cold and pitiful. Madam, are you here to play with leaves? Chiu Yu and the others hadn't married. It wasn't that they didn't want to marry, but that they didn't have anyone they liked. And they hadn't found anyone they liked yet. System, you're all comparing the host. Stay single for the rest of your life. In any case, you're all fair, rich, and beautiful now. You won't starve to death. Yes. Tanggua had just said, yes, when she felt Mei Shangji's resentful gaze. He even forcefully pulled her hand. But I won't play all night. I'm already so old. If I continue to stay up late, I'll age easily. If I age, I won't look good. Are you afraid that the young master will dislike you? Chiu Yu pondered. If the young master dislikes Madame, then Madame should divorce him. Madame is so good. She deserves better. Mei Shangji, the old Madame, who was watching from the side, widened her eyes. She couldn't believe that this was the maidservant that she had taught in the past. This shrewish girl was exactly like Madame Tang from years ago. What? She was disliked by her husband, so she had to divorce him. How could that be possible? However, she knew better than to say anything. Chiu Yu, you guys should give up. I will never abandon my wife. She is my treasure, my sweetheart, my little fairy. Old madam, this old sweetheart of hers can't take it anymore. Old madam, are you playing with leaves? However, we don't allow the elderly here. As Tangua stared at her, old Madam Xing humphed, let's play. She couldn't win against Tangkor with words, but she couldn't possibly lose to Tangkor with a simple trick. After a few rounds, the old lady admitted defeat. Before she left, the old madam hesitated for a moment and said to Tangua, in the future, if there's no one to play with the leaves, you can ask someone to come to the Fu and call me. Although the Marquis's estate was lively, she did not like it. This Tangkor was really poisonous. Here, this is for you, old Madam Xing handed Tangua a handkerchief before she briskly walked away. Wife, what is this? Tangua opened the handkerchief to have a look. On the four corners of the handkerchief, there were words. But she had to fold the handkerchief in half to see what the words were. Thank you, I'm sorry. The Peak. Chapter 3288. Lu Junhua had already recalled everything that had happened in the past. She had given herself to Do Changye because of the objections of the two families and the fact that the Lu family was planning to marry her off to someone else. However, Do Changye did not do it when he was sober. They used to hang out and have fun together often. They would also drink some wine occasionally. She first made Do Changye drunk and hallucinate before lighting some incense to liven things up. Finally, she made him think that it was a dream and everything happened in a blur. She did all of that just to let the Lu family understand her determination. She was mainly afraid that the two families would object to it. Since the Lu family wanted her to be their family, she decided to give Do Changye her best. She would not regret it when she got married in the future. As for what her future husband would think, what did that have to do with her? She was not willing to get married, but she knew very well that the Lu family would definitely force her to get married. They might even use some coercive means. By then, she reckoned that she might not be able to escape and might as well just let it go. The person who married her probably knew that she loved Do Changye wholeheartedly. Since he still agreed to it, he could not blame her for doing those things. However, she did not expect that she would get pregnant because of that. She obviously could not bear to abort the child that she had with the person she loved. She even threatened the Lu family by saying that she was already Do Changye's woman and that she was pregnant with his flesh and blood. If they were to marry her off to someone else, they would become enemies. Under such circumstances, the Lu family indeed did not dare to marry her off. In the beginning, they thought of many ways to make her abort the child. However, she managed to resolve all of them. In the end, the Lu family had no choice but to send her away. They sent her to a remote village and told her to fend for herself there for the rest of her life. However, they did not expect that she would meet with an accident. However, she did not die and even managed to keep her child. However, she had lost her memory. When Ting Pavilion Lu Junhua, who had recalled everything, hurriedly told Do Changye about it. However, Do Changye, who had been chained up all day, did not seem to be that happy. In the beginning, he was indeed happy that Lu Junhua had remembered everything, including the fact that the child was his. He had even promised Lu Junhua that he would definitely get through this. However, Madame Dowager would no longer let Do Changye off. He was a scourge who had brought disaster to the Marquis's mansion. If he was released, the Marquis's mansion might be destroyed one day. Lu Junhua also thought of countless ways to escape, but no matter how many times she tried to escape, she was caught again. Everyone in the capital knew about the commotion in the Marquis's mansion. They also understood that the woman who looked like Lu Junhua was Lu Junhua. Could it be that Lu Junhua wanted to escape because Do Changye was seriously ill and she didn't want to be implicated? The Lu family had also said that Lu Junhua was already a member of the Marquis's residence. As for how she should be dealt with, it was up to the old madam to decide. Obviously, they had given up on Lu Junhua. Lu Junhua's escape was fruitless, and her days in the residence were not easy. It was the same for Do Changye. The two of them who were originally in love with each other gradually became dissatisfied with each other. Lu Junhua missed the days when she lived in the big house in the east. Now that he thought about it, Shengguan Qingchuan was actually not bad. He was still the high and mighty emperor. The reason why she did not consider Shengguan Qingchuan was that he had countless concubines. Even though she had lost her memory, she still wanted to be with him for the rest of her life. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation Peak. Chapter 3289. Facing the current Do Changye, Lu Junhua began to feel regretful. Do Changye was filled with regret too, especially when he realized that Lu Junhua had gradually stopped caring about him. Hence, he was infuriated. Sometimes, he would even hear Lu Junhua and the child talking about how he had let Shengguan Qingchuan down. The child was his, but he kept saying that he wanted to see Shengguan Qingchuan and that he missed him. That made Do Changye so angry that he lost his temper and started arguing with Lu Junhua. At first, the two of them were just bickering, but later on, they even got physical. Do Changye, who had no martial arts skills and was chained up, did not have the upper hand. Old Madame Dowager could hear the two of them arguing in the house every day and had long gotten used to it. Hence, she did not bother about them at all. Nanny, if the second thing I did wrong was to mistreat Tang, the first thing I should have done was to stop them. Old Madame Dowager opened her eyes and looked at the two children who were playing outside the house. She smiled and said, "If I hadn't stopped them back then, do you think they would have gotten together without any obstacles? Nanny, don't you agree that things that are too easy to get are not cherished? Good things will only be regretted when they are lost. That's human nature." Nanny smiled slowly and said, "Old Madam, the weather is good today. Madam May is probably sunbathing in the courtyard again. Do you want to go over and play with her?" "Yes, that's a good suggestion. Bring the two children along and go over together." The two children were all the hope of the Marquis mansion. She could not count on Do Changye, and Lu Junhua was not willing to let her raise the children. She did not care whether Lu Junhua wanted to raise them or not. As long as they had food to eat, they would not starve. When they reached the age of 18, she would get a teacher to teach them how to read and write. She would also get more people to keep an eye on them lest they cause trouble for the Marquis mansion. One day, Lu Junhua finally found an opportunity to escape from the Marquis mansion. Shishu website. Perhaps she was lucky enough to run into Shengguan Qingchuan. When she saw Shengguan Qingchuan, she bit her lips and her eyes turned red instantly. "Young Master Huang, long time no see." Shengguan Qingchuan glanced back at Lu Junhua and said with a smile, "So it's Madame Do." He stopped addressing her as Madame Dowager because a few days ago, Madame Dowager had personally entered the palace and told him that Do Changye would not be able to recover from his illness and that the position of the heir would be given to Do Changye's children. As for which child it was, he would report to him when the child was older. Shengguan Qingchuan was naturally happy to do this, so he deprived Do Changye of his position as the crown prince. Therefore, Lu Junhua could only be called Madame Do. "Young Master Huang, can you help me?" As soon as Lu Junhua asked, a few girls with different looks suddenly appeared around Shengguan Qingchuan, winking at him. "Master, I saw a very beautiful mirror just now." "Master, this concubine wants to buy some rouge from that shop. I'll show you how to apply it when we get back." As she spoke, She even raised her chin and glared at Lu Junhua. This Lu Junhua shouldn't even think of trying to snatch Yi Zichen from them. They had already reached a consensus. Yi Zichen had not had a new concubine for so many years and had never left any of them behind. It would be better for them to get along peacefully so as not to cause trouble for Yi Zichen. Indeed, they had made the right move. Yi Zichen was becoming more and more attentive to them, but he still had no intention of taking in new concubines. Even if some ministers brought it up, they would be scolded and rejected. The peak. Chapter 3290. Saying that the ministers wanted him to die of exhaustion, scolding them so badly that they laughed themselves to death. Serves those ministers right for looking for trouble. Now that their master was free and often took them out for a stroll, they felt that there was no meaning in fighting anymore. Moreover, they felt that if they were not obedient, their master might not want them anymore. But they would not allow this kind of person who wanted to take advantage of their master. Madame Doe, I have to take them to buy things, so I won't talk much. Under Lu Junhua's incredulous gaze, Shangguan Qingchuan was taken away by several stunning women. Originally, Shangguan Qingchuan planned to create a few princes to take over his position in the future, and he could get some small secrets of cultivation from his imperial uncle. Then he would follow his imperial uncle to cultivate, and the imperial palace and eastern Shang country would be handed over to his sons. But the concubines in the imperial harem were too well behaved, he could feel their sincerity. Finally, he decided to accompany them for a lifetime, and after they left, he would leave the imperial palace and follow his imperial uncle to cultivate. But the reality was hard to predict. After living with these concubines for a lifetime, he actually had the idea of giving up cultivation. Qingchuan, are you really going to give up? Yes, imperial uncle, I give up. Shangguan Qingchuan's face was full of smiles. His face was very old, not as young as Shangguan Yungu was in the past. Imperial uncle, why did Shangji leave with the person he likes? Maybe this is the love from the heart. In fact, it's really inconceivable that I can like several of them at the same time. Shangguan Yungu could not help but laugh. It's not strange at all that this happened to you. You are also amazing, to be able to manage the imperial harem so harmoniously. In fact, it's easy to achieve harmony after understanding their thoughts. In my lifetime, there are still small conflicts, but they are very well behaved and obedient. When they see that I am angry, they don't dare to make trouble. It's because you are very good to them, they are afraid of losing you. Shangguan Yungu was also not the same as before. Even if he was still a prince without an army, he knew many things. Martial uncle will not stay in one world for long. Granduncle, that brat, will chase after him every time. He is also very persistent. That is why I can understand your thoughts. Shangguan Qingchuan was amused. Granduncle, what kind of a dress is that? Qingchuan, I won't try to persuade you. You've already gotten used to getting along with them. Your feelings for them have already become a fetter that you can't let go of. His master was right. Even if he forced himself to cultivate, he wouldn't achieve anything in the end. He would still turn into a pile of dirt. You might as well have given up from the start. When Shangguan Yungu saw Shangguan Qingchuan's face gradually aging, he knew that Shangguan Qingchuan had given up. Imperial uncle, let them in. I want to talk to them again. All right. Your Majesty, how are you? Are you feeling unwell? Should I call the imperial physician over? What do you want to eat? This concubine will prepare it immediately. Do you want to listen to a little song? I'll play it right away. Although this concubine is not young, but if the emperor wants to see me dance, this concubine should be able to dance. Shangguan Qingchuan flicked their foreheads and said, all right, you're already so old. What's the use of flicking? Flicking. Jumping. Isn't it good to talk? 1 month later, the current emperor, Shangguan Qingchuan, passed away. On the same day, several of Shangguan Qingchuan's concubines died for love. Shangguan Yonggu made the decision to bury them together. The Peak. Chapter 3291. Tang Guo arrived in the New World. Looking at the spacious room and the wedding photo hanging on the wall beside the bed, she couldn't help but mutter, "I'm going to get married again this time." System, it's all because of the random teleportation. It's really against the host every time. I can't stand it anymore. Now, that guy has to wait for you to get married again. I don't know how long he'll have to wait. Tang Guo smiled. There doesn't seem to be any danger around. It's a modern world. It should be more peaceful. Let's go to the group and say hello. School bell, everyone, I've arrived in the New World. This time it's a modern world. I haven't looked at the memory yet, so I don't know the current situation. Is Yonggu here? Shangguan Yonggu, yes, Martial Uncle. It's been so many years. You've just arrived in the New World. I remember that the flow of time here was the slowest. How did it become faster? Qi Shao, time used to be slow at your place. It should be God's will to let the girl go there. If it was fast, you might have died before she reached your place. Yonggu, you're a cultivator now. It's normal for time to pass fast. In our group, for those who cultivate, time passes much faster than the girls, probably because of our lifespan. Look at Emmanuel. Time passes very slowly. We've been here for many years, but he might have just had afternoon tea. And there's really no pattern to the flow of time. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. School bell, Brother Qi Shao is right. It should be like that. By the way, Yonggu, House Qingchuan. What about the House of Marquis? Hot book, Shangguan Yonggu was silent for a while and told them about Shangguan Qingchuan's choice. Although everyone in the group knew about it, they still sighed when they heard it again. Although there were people in this world who could resist the temptation of immortality, Shangguan Qingchuan's choice still made them sigh. School bell, actually, I've seen it a long time ago. He's not enthusiastic about cultivation anymore. In the beginning, he would ask me questions every day, but after a few years, he stopped asking about these things. Instead, he asked me about some beauty maintenance recipes, most of which were for his concubines. To be honest, in that era, those concubines in the imperial harem were really lucky to have met someone like Shangguan Qingchuan. These concubines were also smart and had made the right choice from the start. They had lived together for a lifetime. Even if they didn't have a strong love for each other, they would still be very sad if one day this person was no longer around. Shangguan Qingchuan was no longer suitable for cultivation. It wasn't that he couldn't be emotional during cultivation, but he didn't want to experience loneliness in the long years to come. Thus, he would rather die. Shangguan Yonggu, the old madam of the Marquis' estate, is still alive and very healthy. The house of the Marquis was still as lively as before. However, one could often see the old madam leisurely passing by the house of the general with her entourage. She would stand there for a long time, probably thinking of her uncle master. Chiu Yu and the others, on the other hand, often play with the old lady. They don't have any plans to get married. I think it's good. School bell, that stubborn old lady's body is really healthy. She must be more than 100 years old. Shangguan Yonggu, her 120th birthday just passed. She had a banquet that lasted for 5 days and 5 nights. Transmigration, female supporting character, calm down. The error-free chapters will continue to be updated on the handwriting bar. There are no advertisements on the website. Please bookmark and recommend the handwriting bar. Like transmigration, female supporting character, calm down. Please bookmark, transmigration, female supporting character, calm down. Peak. Chapter 3292. Shengguan Yungu, based on how energetic she is, I think she'll continue to send off her child. With this old lady around, the two mischievous people in the manor won't be able to cause any big waves. The old madam's life looks fine, but in reality, she's also living a painful life. System, host, did you give her too much tonic? The old madam is getting more energetic as she lives. Tanghua, no, it's normal. She probably has a good mentality. With the two mischievous people in the manor, she's worried and wants to live a little longer. System, how long can she live? Can she increase her lifespan just by planning? In any case, he didn't believe that this was an accident. The host must have done it on purpose. After understanding the situation, Tanguo left the group and began to read the plot of this world. After reading through the memories, Tanguo sat in front of the mirror and looked at her unbelievably perfect body. She should be around 20 years old now. But she had been married for 8 years. Yes, she didn't hear wrong. The date on the marriage certificate meant that she had been married for 8 years. Of course, she couldn't have been married at the age of 12 and even gotten a marriage certificate. In a developed country, it was impossible to get a marriage certificate at the age of 12. Even in a backward country, people could only get married secretly. It was impossible to get a marriage certificate. But she took out the marriage certificate. She did get married 8 years ago. She took out her identification card and counted silently. She looked like she was 20 years old, but the age on her identification card showed that she was 30 years old. In other words, she got married when she was 22 years old. Comparing a 20-year-old woman to a 30-year-old woman, even if a 30-year-old woman took good care of herself, there were still traces of her age. No matter how one looked at her, she looked like she was only 20 years old, or even younger. Then why was the age on her identification card 30 years old? That was because she was a clone. Yes, it was the kind of clone that copied the genes of the main body in cloned people. The name of the female lead in this world was Tanghua, and she was just a clone of Tanghua. None of this was done by the female lead. She had been in a coma for many years and relied on sleeping in medical equipment to prolong her life. It was impossible for her to do such a thing. The male lead of this world was the man in the wedding photo on the wall. His name was Ouyang Shixin, and he was the CEO of a biological company. The person in the wedding photo was the real female lead, not her clone. The story started when the female lead's organs started to fail. If there was only 1 or 2 organs, with their family conditions, it would be difficult to find a match, but resources would definitely be allocated first, and the chances of success would be very high. However, all of the female lead's organs were slowly failing. This wasn't an accident, nor was it a genetic problem. It was man-made. Because of some things, the female lead was forced to drink a drug that caused her organs to fail. Whether it was the Tang family or the female lead's husband, Ouyang Shixin, none of them wanted her to die. Ouyang Shixin was in charge of a biological company. On the surface, he was researching normal things. In fact, this company had a secret base where they had been researching human genes. Coincidentally, the company had come up with a new drug. If combined with the equipment, it could allow the female lead to live temporarily. However, her brain could still think, but her body could not move. It was as if she had been frozen. However, this kind of freezing could be counted as stopping time, so that the female lead's organs would stop failing. When they came up with other ways, they could bring her out to solve the problem. In the end, they thought of countless ways, but it was useless. Ouyang Shixian suddenly thought that it might be possible to use the female lead's genes to make an organ clone. However, in the end, they failed many times, and there were not many cord blood genes left. At this time, they could not wake the female lead up again. She could only exist in a life vessel. Once released, no one could predict what irreversible consequences would occur. Later on, someone inadvertently suggested that it was possible to make a duplicate of the same body, which was a clone. When the clone matured, all of her organs would be transplanted into the female lead's body. After all, they had done it before. The experiment of cloning other animals was relatively successful. Chapter 3293. The experiment of cloning was very successful. After all, this biological company's secret laboratory had done many such experiments before. Although most of them made animal clones for research, the human body was rarely done, but it wasn't unheard of. In fact, there were many failed clones in the secret laboratory base. The success this time was not a coincidence. After the clone was completed, it was placed in a nutrient solution and needed a certain amount of time to grow. Even if the growth of the clone was accelerated, the clone would grow to be close to 20 years old, which was the limit. At this time, after many studies, it was still not possible to directly perform the transplant surgery. Even with the current medical technology, it was impossible to perform all the organ surgeries in the human body at once. After all, many transplant surgeries, just one could be done for more than 10 hours. A complete transplant was simply unimaginable. Not only would the surgeon not be able to hold on for that long, but even if they could find a few more doctors in the plan, it would be unrealistic to replace them halfway. After all, the female lead's body was actually very weak, and it was impossible for her to complete such a surgery. Therefore, before a perfect plan was found, the female lead could only exist in a life vessel and be in a state of stillness. Moreover, the female lead couldn't disappear in front of people for a long time. In the end, they decided to copy the female lead's memory and instill it into the clone, which was the original host's mind. She was released and lived with Ouyang Shixian. In this way, the original host had all the memories of the female lead. The year she was released, the female lead was 25 years old. In other words, marriage, illness, and cloning all happened in a short span of 3 years. This year was the 8th year of the female lead's marriage. She was 30 years old. In other words, the original host had lived with Ouyang Shixian for 5 years. In these 5 years, she never doubted her identity. After all, whether it was her family or her husband, they were very good to her. Even when she was married, she was like a little princess that was held in the palm of everyone's hand. Even her younger brother at home took good care of her. Almost all of her relatives were afraid that she would stumble. They didn't want her to do this, they didn't want her to do that. The memory of the female lead's illness was naturally vague. Anyway, it wasn't clear. But in her memory, it was from then on that she had been a rich lady at home who didn't do anything. Everyone knew how much Ouyang Shixian doted on her. In reality, it was Ouyang Shixian and the original owner's parents who were afraid that something would happen to her if she went out to do things. After all, the umbilical cord blood was gone. This was the only suitable organ that could be transplanted to the clone of the person they cared about. If anything were to happen to the clone, the female lead would have no chance of waking up. Now, they just needed to wait for the medical technology to mature, whether it was 5 years, 10 years, or 20 years. As long as the clone was not in danger, the female lead would definitely be able to wake up on the day of the operation. The truth was just as they thought. In the end, a very powerful surgical instrument was created in this world. It was much more accurate and faster than human surgery. This was practically created for the female lead. Those who cared about the female lead were all happy. Chapter 3294. When the surgical instrument was put into use, the family Tang and Ouyang Shixian were paying attention to this matter every day. But they still didn't dare to take it lightly. After thousands of successful operations, they planned to operate on the female lead. After all, the female lead situation was different from other people. She needed to replace all her organs in a short period of time. And with her physical condition, it wasn't suitable for a second time. Later, after a group of top experts discussed, they came up with a perfect plan. Ouyang Shixian planned to operate on the female lead. At this time, the previous host still didn't find any problems. Because her husband, her family, were really good to her. She loved her family, loved her husband. How could she know that she was born just to save another person? One day, the people who had given birth to her would watch her die with their own eyes. The day before the operation, she didn't know anything. But Ouyang Shixian was at home all day and didn't let her cook. The food they ate seemed to be different. But at night, Ouyang Shixian said that the company was busy and he had to go take a look. In fact, he was just worried about the experiment and wanted to go to the secret laboratory to see the situation. In fact, every night, Ouyang Shixian would go home and accompany her. Every night, she slept very deeply. She fell asleep almost as soon as she closed her eyes. That was because as long as Ouyang Shixian was there, he would make her a cup of milk with a sleeping effect. In order to not let her doubt, he would implant some memories between husband and wife. In fact, when she fell asleep, Ouyang Shixian would go to the study to spend the night. He was very clear that this was just a clone, a tool, an organ container to wake up the woman he loved the most. How could he like her? The night before the operation, the previous host tossed and turned and couldn't sleep. Suddenly, she received a call. It was from her brother, Tang Zhou. Tang Zhou's first words were, "Sister, you must listen to me today. Hurry up and go as far as possible." The previous host naturally didn't understand what Tang Zhou's words meant. She always liked to ask what Tang Zhou meant. Tang Zhou didn't know how to explain. He simply came to find her and took her to a temporarily safe place. "Little Zhou, why do you want me to go?" "Sister, trust me this once and leave this place." Tang Zhou was very conflicted. Although he also wanted to save his biological sister, the person in front of him was a clone of another sister. He also knew what the purpose was, but no matter what, this was a living being. The day of the operation was approaching, but he did not want her to be cruelly removed and lose her life. He hoped that his sister would wake up. He hoped that one day, there would be a suitable organ and the surgery would be successful. However, he also knew how kind his sister was. If she knew the truth that another life form had to disappear because of him, she would definitely blame herself for the rest of her life. Perhaps it was because this was everyone's blood, sweat, and tears. She would not choose to end her own life, but she would not be happy for the rest of her life. Tang Zhou naturally wouldn't say these words to the original owner. Seeing the strange look on the original owner's face, Tang Zhou finally told him about the clone. Chapter 3295. He also said that if she didn't leave now, she would only be waiting for death. Your existence is just for another person. Tomorrow, your husband will personally send you to the operating room. Tang Zhou rubbed his hair. If I knew that he wanted to be my sister's clone, I would have stopped him. Today, nothing would have happened. Mom and Dad must know about this. Tang Zhou's face was heavy. No wonder they insisted on sending me abroad that year. They were afraid that I would stop them if I knew about this. Now that everything has been explained to you, I will send you away. I will send you to a place far away. You can hide there for a few decades and you will be safe. I did this not only for you, but also for my sister. Tang Zhou said. She is very kind. If she knew the truth, she would never be happy and would blame herself for the rest of her life. The original owner was very surprised at that time. She wanted to laugh and tell Tang Zhou that this was all a joke. But every clone was born with some abilities. For example, the original owner had a very good memory. It could instantly extract some useful information from past memories. If there were too many unreasonable things, it would be easy to find the problem when they were added together. In the past, because she had lived a happy life, she wouldn't do these things. Now, she was doing these things subconsciously. Tang Zhou had prepared everything. When the original owner was still in a daze, he pushed her into the car and sent her to the airport. He gave her a card, a new mobile phone, and a suitcase. After pushing her in, he turned and left. The original owner didn't get on the plane. She went home. All her memories were the female leads. Those relatives were also the female leads. She was just a clone. Even if Tang Zhou sent her to the airport and prepared all the escape routes for her, she was still confused. Where could she go? She was born for the female lead. Even her thoughts were the female leads. She was not an independent person at all. She loved her parents and her husband, so she went back. That night, she didn't sleep all night. Ouyang Shixian came to pick her up in the morning. The moment the door was opened, Ouyang Shixian walked into the house. She wanted to ask him, but unexpectedly, Ouyang Shixian spoke first. Why did you come back? How could Ouyang Shixian leave a person who was about to undergo surgery alone at home? This clone was related to the life of his beloved woman. At this time, the original owner understood that even if she left yesterday, she would still be caught. Therefore, she only said, I don't know where to go. In the end, I could only return here. Since you already know and understand that you can't escape, then come with me. The original owner did not resist and left with Ouyang Shixian. She was still confused and didn't know what to do. She had been raised at home by Ouyang Shixian. Chapter 3296. The female lead was accompanied by her family and lived a happy life. As for the female lead's clone, which was also the clone, everyone kept it from her, thinking that she only needed to live happily. Things were a foregone conclusion. Even though Tang Zhou had countless anger and sadness in his heart, he still didn't dare to tell the truth for fear of irritating the female lead. Moreover, the family and Ouyang Shixian were afraid that Tang Zhou would talk nonsense. Basically, they didn't allow him to be alone with the female lead. The original host had been removed and was temporarily placed in a nutrient solution. Because the data showed that her vital signs had not disappeared, they decided to wait until they had time to study it. After all, this was a very successful clone. But before that, there were many things to deal with, so they didn't care about the original host for the time being. When they were almost busy and remembered the clone, they came to check her situation and found a strange thing. This matter caused everyone in the secret laboratory to be surprised. Because, in the body of the clone that had been removed, there were organs slowly growing. Although they looked very small and slow-growing, they were very sure that this was what they were thinking. When Ouyang Shixian knew about this situation, he didn't hesitate to let everyone invest in the research. They must study the principle. The original host, who was originally thought to be free, became a living experimental body. She was sliced and cruelly cut off. Over and over again, even if she had been surrounded by countless love and had countless love, she was gradually erased by these cold scalpels. She was in pain. She was in pain every day. No one could understand the pain of the body being removed again and those organs slowly growing back. All the love and innocence in her heart had disappeared. All that was left was anger. Yes, she learned to be angry, learned to hate, learned to resist and struggle. The original host situation was not ordinary. After all was removed, it would slowly grow back. As long as there was enough nutrient solution, the growth rate was very fast. This kind of regeneration ability made Ouyang Shixian moved. Needless to say, the people in the secret laboratory were even crazier. At first, they only removed the original host's organs. Later, they cut off her fingers, her facial features. As long as it could be removed, they would remove a little bit to see if it could grow back again. Once humans mastered this kind of regeneration ability, it would be a very big breakthrough. The people in their entire laboratory would also make shocking achievements. At this time, Ouyang Shixian also received very bad news. That was, although the female lead surgery was very successful, the new organs in the body were still deteriorating faster than normal people. It may take 10, 20, or even 30 years before the day it really deteriorated. But he absolutely would not allow the female lead to be in any danger. His main purpose was to devote himself to the research of the human organ regeneration project. If there was a drug research, the female lead would completely have no worries and could live a healthy life. After thousands of experiments, the original host had no feelings. All the grief, anger, pain, and pain. One day, she had great power. Chapter 3297. She killed all the people who dissected her in the laboratory, escaped from the laboratory, and began to destroy the world. Her mind was only filled with destruction. She was like an emotionless monster, a monster born in the laboratory. She destroyed everything she saw, causing a terrible disaster to the world. She was a monster that only knew how to destroy. In the end, it was Ouyang Shixian who dealt with the original owner. Ouyang Shixian used the memories of the past to awaken the original owner and let her brain be surrounded by that sweet love. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ouyang Shixian destroyed her. The story of the original owner ended here. She was born for people, but died because of love. It could be said that she lamented her life. The environment made her unable to understand many things. In the eyes of humans, she was a bad thing. Because of her existence, she brought countless dangers to humans, destroying their buildings and homes. However, humans would never understand the reason behind this. They didn't even know that some of the skin restoration fluids sold on the market were actually extracted from countless experiments on the body of the original owner of the body with scalpels. Without the original owner, how could there be skin repair liquid in this world? How could their damaged skin be repaired? After solving the original owner's problem, the experiment on regeneration was forced to stop. In order to not cause any more trouble and accompany the female lead, Ouyang Shixian decided to close the secret laboratory. He planned to live a happy life with the female lead. He suddenly understood that life would always come to an end. Why should he spend all his energy to study those illusory things that might not succeed? It was better to slowly grow old with the person he loved. Later, Tang Zhou died in a car accident. The female lead was sad for a long time. Under the comfort of Ouyang Shixian, she slowly walked out of it. Later, the female lead's parents also died of old age. At this time, Ouyang Shixian suddenly realized that the female lead seemed to have not smiled for a long time, especially to him. But he didn't ask why. They just passed their life like this, pretending to be very happy. These were all the memories. Tangguo carefully looked through them. At the side, the system had also watched it many times. Every time the host said that he didn't look carefully. Recently, he looked through them several times, so he shouldn't miss any important information. Madam Host, does the female lead know something? In the end, her reaction seemed a little strange. She probably knows something, but I don't know what exactly she knows. After all, there was no mental activity related to the female lead in his memories. But it was a fact that the female lead's later life was very unhappy. There was still some time before he was pushed to the operating table. Regardless of whether the time was up or not, Tangguo did not intend to be pushed to the operating table. She would not allow her organs to be removed while she was still alive. Since he was here, he definitely wasn't here to be abused. Ouyang Shixian only treated the clone as a tool. Even if he had his own goals and persistence, this clone was already her, so they were enemies. Didn't Ouyang Shixian want to save the female lead? She thought of a perfect plan, but she didn't know if Ouyang Shixian would be willing to save the female lead. Chapter 3298. While there was still time, Tangguo communicated with the people in the group about this world. Everyone still told her to be careful. No matter what happened, no matter what she did, the first thing she had to protect was herself. Even if she was very powerful, the people in the group never ignored this advice. Especially Margaret, who told Tangguo to live well. She was afraid that she would have an accident and couldn't go to the magic world in the end. This made everyone in the group dumbfounded. Tangguo's current situation is that of a rich wife at home. It seems that in the memories instilled in her, her body is relatively weak. It's not suitable for strenuous exercise, nor is it suitable for long-distance travel. She was even warned not to eat any stimulating food. In fact, slowly from these clues in life, the original owner may have found something strange. But she was born with memories and full of trust to the people around her. Even if there were countless things wrong in the place, she didn't think about guessing anything. Because in her memory of more than 20 years, her parents had always doted on her as a little princess and were reluctant to let her suffer a little. Her husband, Ouyang Shixian, was also like a jewel, holding her in the palm of his hand. What she suspected, she wouldn't doubt these relatives. Tangguo watched TV at home for a while. It was still early before Ouyang Shixian came back in the evening, so she decided to go to her parents' house. This time, she went alone. In the past, no matter where she went, her parents and Ouyang Shixian would let her know in advance and arrange for someone to pick her up. Maybe she was more obedient before, so Ouyang Shixian didn't arrange anyone to watch her. Tangguo followed the behavior in the memory, went to the garage to get the car, and then drove to her parents' house. The distance between the two houses was only half an hour. As soon as she left, Ouyang Shixian received the message that she left home. When Tangguo was driving, the system helped to catch that someone was following her. Not only was there someone following her, but the system had scanned before, and all the cars in the garage had invisible cameras and trackers. Obviously, Ouyang Shixian had prepared these for a long time, just in case. Do they have a connection with Ouyang Shixian? Host, they are on the phone. Sure enough, as I thought, let's go to the female lead's parents' house first and let Ouyang Shixian worry. A faint smile hung on the corner of Tangguo's lips. From now on, I am a clone. Maybe in the eyes of many clones, a clone is not a person, but just a tool for the survival of mankind. But in the eyes of our clones, a clone is also a life, and it needs to be respected. We have human genes, we want to live well in this world, we want to be loved, we want to be cared for, and we want to live a stable life in this world. But the human beings who made us are the human beings to make us. If the body has no other purpose, the end will be destroyed. As a naturally reproduced human, perhaps they would understand this kind of cooking. However, I'm now a clone. The system seemed to have heard something, so it just listened quietly. Chapter 3299. Because in those memories, not only was the original owner being experimented on and cut up for research, but there were also other clones gradually being born. After the original owner was successfully cloned, the laboratory began to fully research clones. Many participants used their own genes to do this experiment. Now, in the secret laboratory, there were many clones. There were finished products, semi-finished products, and even clones like Tangua that had already been brought out. Of course, there was one that was put into use, but its organs were removed to provide clones to the original owner. In the end, of course, it was destroyed. In the later part of the plot, in order to prevent the clones from causing any more trouble, Ouyang Shixian decisively blew up the island. Not only were there thousands of clones, but there were also some researchers. He destroyed everything because he wanted to hide the secret that he would never tell the female lead. In order to not let the female lead know the truth, he used all means and almost lost his humanity, thinking that he could exchange it for a stable and happy life. I also suspect Tang Zhou's death. Tangua silently said to the system, "The female lead's brother's death is too strange. Don't you think so?" Actually, when I read it, I found out that he died in a car accident. I remember it said that Tang Zhou was a racer, right? He was professionally trained. When he was racing, he had many car accidents. Because of safety precautions, he only had minor injuries. But when he died, it was a bit strange. The main reason was that his death was too strange. He suspected that Ouyang Shixian did it, but he had no evidence. Half an hour later, Tangua arrived at the family Tang. "Xiaogua, why did you come here alone?" Mother Tangua walked in front of her with a worried face. "How can you run around? Your health is not good. What if something happens? Next time you go out, tell Shixian and ask him to arrange a driver for you. Or call us and ask us to arrange for someone to pick you up." Tangua noticed that although Mother Tang's face was full of worry, there was not much affection in her eyes. The anxiety in her eyes was more like she was afraid that she would be lost and not be found. When that happened, it would lead to terrible consequences. Did the original owner not notice such an obvious look in her eyes? Perhaps she had discovered it, but it was just an illusion from her memory that made her subconsciously ignore it. "Since the child is here, let her in." Father Tang looked much calmer and quickly called her in. He was slightly different from the Father Tang in her memory. The Father Tang here looked a little more serious. In her memory, every time Father Tang saw her, he would smile lovingly. Clearly, even if this person looked like their daughter, had the same genes as their daughter, and even had their daughter's memories, they could clearly tell that this person was not their daughter. Being courteous and caring to her was just an organ in her body that could allow their daughter to truly wake up. She did not see any other emotions in the couple's eyes, so Tangua did not feel conflicted. Of course, a clone could not be compared to their beloved biological daughter. It should be said that there was no comparison at all. Therefore, she did not expect that the couple would have any pity for her. In order to save their daughter, parents who loved their daughter would do anything crazy. Chapter 3300. Tangua's mother still went to cook enthusiastically. Perhaps they had been instructed, but Tangua could see that they were deliberately maintaining the way they used to get along with her. Perhaps it was because she was different now, so their behavior was a little stiff. After dinner, I'll arrange for the driver to send you back. You're not in good health, so don't run around. If Shi Xian finds out, he'll be so worried that he'll look for you all over the world. Tang Guo's mother said reproachfully. At this moment, there was some sadness in her eyes. She was probably sad for Ouyang Shi Xian. After all, he hadn't had a few happy days with the female lead before she almost died. Now, he was busy saving the female lead and doing such things. From their point of view, of course, they would be touched by Ouyang Shi Xian's infatuation and also sad. Yes, the next time you go out, you must inform Shi Xian, Tang Guo's father said. Do you still remember what happened in the past? After you got into a conflict, you went missing. Shi Xian stopped all the operations of the company in order to find you. Next time, don't let him worry. Yes, Shi Xian is too difficult. Tang Guo's mother chimed in. Where are you going? Tell us in advance, or tell Shi Xian. We'll accompany you. Xiao Guo, you're already married. Now Shi Xian is busy with work every day. If it's not something particularly important, just call us. In fact, Tang Guo's parents were looking forward to the day of the operation every day. That way, their real daughter would be able to wake up. Facing the clone in front of them, even though she looked the same, they never treated her as a real life form. In their eyes, she was just a tool. Perhaps everything she had was a copy of the female lead, which made them feel that this person was just a vessel and not a real person. Why can't I go out alone? I don't wander around. I just go out to relax, go shopping with a few friends, and watch movies. Haven't these things always been done in the past? Tang Guo asked. As soon as she finished speaking, the couple was stunned because this was the first time Tang Guo had questioned them. To them, it was this clone who only knew how to listen. For the first time, she asked what she wanted to do instead of obediently following their arrangements. Compared to before, she seemed to be more lively. The couple didn't think of how to answer this question. Yes, why couldn't she go out alone, go shopping with a few friends, watch movies, and buy something she liked? Wasn't this the life an ordinary person should have? Dad, Mom, I'm actually very healthy. I tried it at home. I can swim 10 times in one breath and I won't be too tired. What a joke. It was a clone after all. In fact, its genes had already been strengthened. On top of that, it was in the best environment for growth. Otherwise, it wouldn't have developed a regenerative constitution in the later stages, or even awakened a powerful strength. The couple was even more speechless, but Mother Tang still forced herself to say, as parents, we're always worried about our little princess. Ever since you fell sick, your parents and I have been worried about you going out alone. Xiao Guo, don't make us worry. This was indeed a very good reason. They had blurred out the original owner's memory of organ failure and gave it to her. Chapter 3301. In her memory, there was indeed a time when she was seriously ill and almost died. There was nothing wrong with this explanation. In order to dissuade Tang Guo from going out alone, the couple cried in front of her and pretended to be worried and upset. They looked as if they were afraid of losing her and tried to get her to come back to her senses. This was because this was the only clone that could save their daughter. If Tang Guo went missing, or if someone found out that something was wrong, it would be dangerous for their daughter. In addition, human cloning was not allowed in this world. It was against the rules of humanity. Many years ago, research on human cloning was prohibited. However, there were still many organizations that were secretly researching it. If the existence of this clone was discovered, those people would definitely not let it go. The couple was still talking when there was a sudden sound at the door. The door was pushed open and a handsome young man in a racing uniform walked in. He was carrying a peeping bag and looked very handsome. The young man first looked at Tang Gua, then at Father and Mother Tang. He smiled and said, "Dad, Mom, I heard from the door that you were afraid that my sister would go missing. What's going on?" This young man was Tang Zhou. He walked in with a face full of smiles. His eyes swept over Tang Gua for a moment and dimmed slightly. He looked at the dishes on the table and said, "Dad, Mom, you are really biased. Sister is here, but you made such delicious food. When I was at home, when I was hungry, you just let the auntie make something. It looks like Mom personally cooked today. I can already smell the familiar aroma. Since you can smell it, quickly wash your hands and come over to eat." Mother Tang smiled and greeted Tang Zhou. Compared to before, she looked at Tang Zhou with joy and love from the bottom of her heart. She clearly did not expect Tang Zhou to come back at this time. "Ah, Zhou, didn't you say that you would only be back next week?" Tang Zhou washed his hands and came out of the kitchen. He scooped a bowl of rice for himself and sat at his usual seat. He first took a big bite of rice and then a bite of a familiar dish. He swallowed and said, "The competition is over. I wanted to stay overseas for a few days to have fun, but it seemed like there was nothing to do. It was the same events every year. It was quite boring, so I came back early." The couple was not surprised by Tang Zhou's words. Tang Zhou was a professional racer. The Tang family did not lack money. Their son had some hobbies, and they supported him. Even if he didn't support him, he couldn't. This kid was very stubborn. However, Tang Zhou had promised that he would only play with traffic jams until he was 30 years old. When he was 30 years old, he would immediately retire and come back to take over the company. Because he was afraid that his parents would be worried, he would check the car, his equipment, and the safety measures before each race. Even if he was in danger several times, he was very professional and protected himself well. He was much luckier than many racers. In addition, his physical condition was not bad, and he was young, so the chances of something happening to him were actually very small. "By the way, Dad, Mom, I heard you guys talking at the door. Is Sis going out?" Tang Zhou asked. Mother Tang told her about how Tang Gua said she wanted to go shopping and buy things, and how they tried to persuade her. "Mom and Dad are busy with the company, and brother-in-law is also very busy. I think I have the most free time now. Why don't I accompany sister to go shopping for a while? It's not good to be cooped up in the house every day. What do you think?" Vertex. Chapter 3302. Tang Zhou's suggestion actually made the couple a little hesitant. This was within Tang Gua's expectations. Although Tang Zhou was in his 20s, he was full of vitality and always had a pure heart. He looked like a strong man, but in fact, his heart was extremely benevolent. When he was young, he was the kind of person who would not even be willing to step on a small ant. Back then, they had thought of ways to send Tang Zhou abroad for the cloning matter. They only knew the truth when Tang Zhou came back. No, if it were not for the fact that they could not hide it anymore, they would not have told Tang Zhou. For a period of time, Tang Zhou taught them the meaning of life every day. No matter what kind of life it was, it should be respected. He also told them that his sister was such a kind and simple person. If she knew that her life was exchanged for another person's life, even if it was a clone's life, she would live in uneasiness and guilt for the rest of her life. She would die of pain. If his sister woke up, she would rather die than have such an ending. Of course, Tang Zhou did not succeed. The couple looked like they had aged 20 years because of his sister, which made him feel bad. He had been abroad all these years, not only to participate in the racing competition, but also to find a way to save his sister. For the time being, he could not think of a way to save Tangua's clone. There had been no suitable surgery plan. This was good news for him. At least it would buy him a lot of time. However, in the end, Tang Zhou still failed. Mom, Dad, let Zhou accompany me. I haven't seen Zhou in a long time. Tangua spoke at this time. She felt that there was something wrong with her brother. She needed to observe him closely to see what was hidden in his heart. If the couple refused to let her brother accompany her shopping, there would be a big problem. Okay, then it's settled. After the couple agreed, Tang Zhou said happily, after lunch, I'll take my sister shopping, buy her a beautiful dress, and watch a movie with her. Speaking of which, after my sister got married, she hasn't gone out with me for a long time. After lunch, when Tang Guo was not paying attention, Mrs. Tang gave Tang Zhou a look and called him to the room. Father Tang, on the other hand, kept talking to divert Tangua's attention. Tang Guo pretended not to know anything and watched them act. Ah, Zhou, you can't ruin your brother-in-law's plans. As long as we find a suitable plan, your real sister can come back. Mrs. Tang warned him. No matter how much she resembles your sister and has your sister's memories, she's still not your sister. Ah, Zhou, you have to understand. Ah, Zhou, I know you're kind-hearted, but you can't even bear to kill an ant. But the person we need to save is your sister. She is the only one who can save your sister. Are you going to watch your sister die like this? Mom, have you thought about how happy sister will be when she wakes up and finds out about all this? Shi Xian has already promised us that we will never tell her about this. As long as you don't say anything and we don't say anything, Xiao Guo will never know and will continue to live happily. Ah, Zhou, Mom is begging you, okay? As she spoke, Mrs. Tang was about to kneel in front of Tang Zhou. Tang Zhou quickly held her and said in a low voice, Mom, she's very pitiful. I just want to treat her better. She won't be able to see this world in the future. I just want to accompany her to do something she likes. She hasn't seen this world yet, and you're going to take her life away. I just pity her. Otherwise, I'll feel bad. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.